Hello, and welcome back to If These Old Beasts Could Talk. Now, I wish I had an informational, funny, or just otherwise upbeat history video for you today. But that's not what I have. Today, I have a personal anecdote combined with a PSA that I hope will strike a chord with as many people as humanly possible. I'd like to preface this all by saying I'm sure there's one point or another in everybody's life where they've done something stupid. They've done something dumb, they've done something wrong, however bad it was, but it realistically could have led to your injury or your death. I'm not immune to that. As a rail fan, there have been multiple occasions where I have done some pretty stupid things. Now, the difference between people like us who have done stupid things and genuinely regretted it, and people like Capital City Rail Productions who did something incredibly stupid in complete disregard for people's lives, is that we learn from our mistake and go on to tell it publicly to hopefully convince other people to not make that mistake, or at least think twice before they do the activity that led to it. Me and my friends are avid explorers just as much as we are historians and rail fans. The railroads nearby, particularly my town and my neighborhood, have been worked into the landscape, so to speak. There's photos of the Detroit, Lansing, and Northern Railroad, the now Plymouth subdivision of the CSX, being built that show massive carts, massive horses, and general working of the land being done to blast a line into the ground, creating a culvert, which the railway now glides through our town in. However, in other areas, it wasn't so much people working into the land as people working around the land. And the line we're going to be discussing today, the Great Lakes Central Railroad, the old Ann Arbor line, is one of such instances. Now, the Ann Arbor line was worked around the geography of the local area in many ways. And in a certain part, it is very clear that ballast was laid in a manner to create an artificial cliff on both sides to sort of bridge a gap that would otherwise be unbridgeable. So, it was in this particular area a while ago that me and one of my friends, who is going to remain unnamed, I wouldn't want to out him in some sort of horrible way that he's not comfortable with, but needless to say, we were exploring. And we have been finding decent things too. We had found a bottle from the Prohibition, a Coke bottle that was pre-1950, and many other relics. What we didn't expect to find was a southbound. Me and my friend heard a horn and were left in an extremely precarious situation. The area which we were in, on one side, was a sheer drop to an extremely hard landing. And then the other side was a less sheer cliff, however it was incredibly unstable, a gravel slide down to a river. We heard horns, and we had to take cover on one side quickly. We dove into the side with the river, thankfully none of us falling in, and we sat there, crawling up a hill much as a soldier would, and we stood, we didn't stand, we were laying there, and we waited for the train to pass by. Now that train did not give us much of a gap, and that was probably the best case scenario in that given situation. Many times, there is no best case scenario. You could less so be caught in a situation where the train is on a hill and you're clinging to the side of the hill, and more so be caught in a situation present in the Ann Arbor Railroad's cut, or in the Detroit, Lansing, and Northern's blast zones, where the railroad is the bottom and the hills slope down towards it. To climb up the steep part of the hill on the Detroit, Lansing, and Northern line is an extremely exerting activity. I don't think that one in an extremely panicked state, particularly a high-speed locomotive, like a CSX locomotive, coming at them, will be able to escape it. So I leave you with this. Please don't trespass. I almost died trespassing. You know, I'd much rather that they have people go around and just talk with people about the dangers of it than to have to lose people to it, particularly my friends or myself. Railroads are no joke. People used to lose fingers, people used to lose limbs, people used to, and still do, lose their lives on the railroads every single day. It's an incredibly dangerous job, and an even more dangerous place to screw around like an idiot. Trust me. Think tight spaces, think tragedy. Well, I suppose more so as the saying should go, see tight spaces, think tragedy. Railroads are no joke, and I'm just glad I lived to tell my story, because I, unlike a majority of people out there, learned my lesson the hard way. Sometimes you get to escape situations like that. Sometimes you get to go home scot-free and live another day. But I'd just like to sit here for a moment and think about those that couldn't. Think about those misguided souls that simply had no choice. They got one chance, didn't really realize the risk they were taking, and then had their lives cut short by a train. It happens all too often, and it's incredibly unfortunate that such a wonderful hobby and such a wonderful industry, an industry that built this country, is so marred by death and just sadness. So please, for the sake of the entire rail fanning community, don't do stupid things and not learn from them. Or at least think before you act. It's probably the best thing you could do whenever you're around anything dangerous, or in any situation ever. With that, think before you act. This has been If These Old Beasts Could Talk. Please, have a good day, and ensure that you educate people around you so that they can continue having good days and continue being, well, alive and on this planet. See tight spaces? Think tragedy. See train? Think tragedy. Wait for the gates. Don't go places where you feel like you can't escape. See you around.